Hi guys, welcome back to Linbrov. So I'll be answering a question today, and just like the previous post, I answered a question about on a Facebook group. So um, just reiterating, this Facebook group is a business Facebook group, and a lot of small to mid-size businesses go on there to uh, to network and to ask questions and to either buy or sell products on there. And there was this one question. So I answered a previous question on there. Um, so the previous question that I answered for that Facebook group was, what was the most important skill? And the last video I talked about how learning new things was the most important skill. And now in this video, I want to talk about another question that was posted as well. And someone asked, what do you do when you have many ideas? Right? And I read a couple of responses, and I'll just read the responses that I've written on that post, and I'll also add uh, a few extra things on top of that. So what I said was, what do you do when you have many ideas? So, first point, stay up at night and not get any sleep. Uh, I was jokingly saying that. Um, Seriously, I usually talk them over with colleagues that I trust. You do rubber ducking. So rubber ducking is basically in software development. If you have an issue, if you have a problem, you go to someone and you describe them the problem, and then they when you're describing the problem to them, they might point you in a certain direction, but usually they don't actually help you solve the problem. You're just uh, needing someone to explain the problem to, and then when you map out that problem, you then come to a realization of how to actually fix that problem, right? And someone had to be the victim to just listen to you complaining that you couldn't fix the problem, and that's what you call rubber ducking. You know, yeah. So, anyways, and get feedback to validate those ideas. So you get a couple of you have to test your ideas. So you might think it's a good idea, but um, and some people try to hide those ideas to themselves, which sometimes you have to because um, you might reveal the secrets to your competitors, but most of the time, ideas is ideas are valuable only to the extent if you execute them, right? So everyone has ideas. If you don't execute, then that's the problem. The thing is, you also have to test your idea in the first place to see if it's viable, or else you're just going to go down a rabbit hole, chasing down that rabbit down the rabbit hole. If you're pursuing an idea that is not viable and tested. So, anyways, some of them would be good, and some of them would not be good, right? Not so good. That's why you test them, right? Then filter the ideas and figure out which one of them is a low hanging fruit, and which ones are the long term investments. So, uh, out of the really bad ideas and out of the good ideas, you'll filter out your good ideas, right? You'll vet them based on your discussions with other people, and because they have different experiences, right? So you might want to talk to someone in the field um, that has 5, 10 years, 15 years experience, and then you have this idea because you saw a pain point in the industry, and then you went up to them and then you asked them, oh, based on your experience in working in the industry, is this viable? And they might tell you the reason why this idea isn't implemented is because of these certain complexities, and there might be laws, regulations, red tape, so on and so forth. There might be people just don't want to adopt them. It's not uh, financially viable because people don't want to pay the high price tag of implementing those systems. So even though that idea was a good idea, no one's going to pay for it. So, but once you filter out those good ideas, there's going to be ones that take fairly quickly to implement, and there's ideas that are going to take years, right? Like you're not going to be able, for example, I always use this example, Tesla, right? If you had an idea, if you're Elon Musk and you had the idea of making the electric car to mass manufacture it and to make it so cheap, because electric cars existed prior to Tesla anyway, right? Um, but if you had the idea to mass produce it, to get, the mass adoption, right? That's a big idea that takes years, just, of investment, and, takes, 10, 20 years, right? So those ideas would be like the long-term ideas. Now you have those short-term ideas where it's like, oh, um, you want to start a web development agency, and uh, you can target a specific niche, and it's no one's really doing it, right? So like, I think I read a statistic that possibly around 60% of small to mid-sized businesses, probably even more than that, don't even have like a landing page or a website. So there's still opportunity there, but you just have to know where it is, right? So that is low hanging fruit, because you can start straight away. Um, you know, oh, but you have to know how to program in the first place and do web development in the first place. But what I'm saying is that comparing those two ideas, web development and making a Tesla car company, those two are great ideas, but the other one is a 10, 20-year investment. And the initial one is like, a couple month investment, right? So yeah, so you look at the low hanging fruits and long-term investments, and then the other ones that are not really viable, sustainable, marketable, economical, needed, etc. I discarded. So I discard, so you might have, say, thousands of ideas, and then you reduce them to hundreds of ideas, right? And then you reduce that even more to, like, say, 10, 15, or even one or two, right? Um, Based on your filtering mechanism, right? So uh, then, so you discard, the ones that are not really viable. Then you should only be left with a few ideas when you have used your heuristics to filter them by, right? So you have a general heuristic. It may change or not. It may change or not, based on experience, or based on the specific ideas you're trying to filter out, right? Then after that, you figure out if you will be passionate about the idea. So if it's a good idea, but then you can't be bothered trudging through all the work, and um, that's not something that you want to pursue, and it's something that you hate doing, right? Then even if it's a good idea, there's no point of pursuing that idea, right? So um, but there will be, so in brackets I put, there will be things you hate about it. So uh, there's some things that are good to pursue, but there's some things within that you hate doing, right? So if you start a business, obviously a lot of people don't like doing their taxes, but taxes have to be done, right? And you have to keep invoices, receipts, and all that kind of stuff. And if you have to keep track. There's software to keep track nowadays, but um, for the most part, it's like, yeah, you have to keep track of your expenditures and make sure that your finances are okay, and you're not going overboard with your expenses, and you can get things tax deducted and tax return, right? But yeah, so there's going to be things, paperwork, all that kind of stuff that you hate about it. But then if the overall idea, you're going to enjoy it, and overall, you're going to be passionate about pursuing that, then yeah, that's one heuristic, or one test that you use to see if you want to pursue that idea, right? Then next thing, right, is if you can figure out if you can be passionate about it, is that then when you become obsessed with the idea, you are able to get others on board that will believe in your ideas, that you constantly think about, because you then become a visionary. So uh, when you're starting a business, right, you don't have any capital, you can't hire people, and the people that you do hire, right? So you have to initially you have to hire really talented people, right? But the saying goes, like, why would a talented person work for you, right? So well, not the saying goes, but I mean, you know, to get talented people to work for you, they have to work for you for more than just the money, because most of the time, if you hire mediocre and average people, they're gonna definitely work for the money, and they're not gonna care about what you're trying to pursue, right? But the really passionate and really expert people, and those that are creative and those that want to join a company because of its vision, they're not just doing it for the money, they're doing it because, they also feel fulfilled as well. So if what you're making isn't, you know I if they don't see any potential in it, and if they don't have any creative input, or if they don't see the potential in it, then no matter how much you pay them, right, they're not going to want to work with you anyway, because they're going to say, oh, it's a dead end job. So the incentive for the really hardworking creative people is that it's the vision of the company and where it's going. Because what you'll find is that, if you have a good vision and have a good idea and have a good product, people will work with you. Uh, you know, like, you don't have to. They'll. It's not they're going to work for you for free. It's that they're going to invest their time for a return later on. But because of the vision, they put a upfront investment of their time, and they say, "Oh, I want to see this through. I want to build it," and they help you build it, right? So initially, you might not have enough money to hire, say, a developer for 100K or 200K, right? But a senior developer might want to join as a shareholder and get equity because they believe in your idea, and they're like, oh, um, I know you don't have that 100, 200K to pay me, but I'm going to invest my time and effort to see where this idea leads. So that's the reason why it's important to have the uh, a really good idea first, and also you have behind the idea, you have to yourself have to be uh, a good driver of pushing and executing that idea, because uh, smart, intelligent, hardworking people want to also work with smart, intelligent, and hardworking people. If you're lazy and you just had an idea and you say, "Oh yeah, go make it for me, and I'll give you equity," then the you know um, that smart person is going to be like, "Oh, I could just do it myself. Like, you've you know revealed your idea to me. I'm just going to do it myself. I've got all the knowledge and all the skills that you need. Then I can just make it myself, right?" So they have to have the incentive of, you know, where is the vision taking, where is the vision of the idea going, and also they have to have the incentive of, um, who is driving this idea and who's executing it, and am I on the right team, and am I working with people that I can push this idea forward, right? Yeah. Uh, I think there was a saying. It's like, it's good to hire, you know, smart people that's hardworking, that has high integrity. If you take out the integrity part and you have smart and hardworking, those are the worst people to have, because they'll just backstab you. They'll just stab you in the back and take your idea. So you have to get the integrity part as well, right? Okay, so you have to become obsessed with the idea, right? And you are able to get others on board that you believe that sorry, that will believe in your ideas, that you constantly think about, because you then become the visionary, right? And in very big companies like Facebook, uh, Apple, Microsoft, uh, Tesla, so on and so forth, Amazon, so on and so forth, they all had visionary leaders. Alibaba, they all had visionary leaders to push them. And when the visionary leaders left, uh, those companies tended to become just like, they became big companies, but their innovation lacked, right? And it started to dwindle comparing to those who had the visionary leaders that pushed the company forward, right? So uh, that's the important reason why you have to become obsessed with that one specific reason, one specific idea, or those couple ideas that is why your company exists in the first place, right? Then, last point that I noted was that Okay, so it's okay to have plenty of ideas. It's a good thing. It means you are a creative, and it's much more rare than people think. If you are constantly thinking of ideas, you are constantly trying to solve problems. You just have to make sure that when you decide to pursue one, that you are laser focused on achieving it, and make sure that you don't get distracted by other ideas, or else you won't be able to achieve things if you are stretched out too thin. But keep a diary of your ideas so that you can revisit them in the future. Okay, so this comes back to uh, the saying, the new shiny object syndrome. I think hopefully I didn't butcher that terminology, but uh, yes, shiny object syndrome, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of creatives, right, and a lot of people that make ideas or think of ideas, they're always they they can fall into the temptation of trying the new thing. It's like, oh, I got this new idea, let's pursue this. I got this new idea, let's pursue that. Let's go here, let's go there, let's do this, let's do that. It's good, in a sense, to have those ideas, right? But you have to discipline yourself to stick to one at a time, right? Or two or three, right? Like you can, if you're capable, then yes, you can, pursue multiple ideas, based on how much you can. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's doing multiple things at once, right? If you're Elon Musk, right, then you can pursue multiple ideas, right? But you have to look at your capabilities of how much can you, um, afford to, like, how much effort can you put in, and how much effort can you put in until the quality of your output starts to reduce, right? So you have to maintain, the quality of output, of execution towards each of the ideas you have. And if you keep on trying to execute multiple ideas, then you're going to be stretched thin, and yeah, um, it's not going to be executed as well. And this goes back to the you know age-old question about, should you become a generalist or a specialist? You know, you should have like a T-shaped expertise where you have general knowledge of a lot of things, and then certain aspects of those knowledge, you have great expertise, right? So because then you can you're able to delegate, and you're able to work in different fields, right, and work with people of different fields, because you understand a broad set of knowledge, but at the same time you've got your own specific deep domains that you understand very, 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 very well, right? So uh, the point is, uh, you are at liberty to uh, pursue maybe two, three, four, oh, 2, 3, 4 ideas. Yep, it's just the magnet starting to slip. Okay, so 2, 3, 4 ideas. It's okay to pursue 2, 3, 4 ideas as long as you can, cope and handle. Uh, so you just have to make sure that you can cope and handle. But so it's a pendulum swing, right? So there's good ideas, and you have to make sure that you choose a couple of them to execute. And once you go to the other side, you sort of specialize, and once you go to the other side, you generalize, right? In multiple things, right? So do things one at a time, and essentially. So, for example, I'll give you an example in software development, right? There's this thing called scope creep, right? So this is why a lot of companies are going away from waterfall, because waterfall is like, you go from requirements, and then you go for design, then implementation, and then testing, and then deployment, and then you hand it off to the customer, right? Or you do user acceptance testing, and then once everything is verified and validated, then you hand it off to the customer. But the problem that has been appearing in a lot of projects is that a lot of customers say, "Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this changed. I have this idea for this feature, and can you change this? Can you change that? Can you change that?" Right? So that's what you call scope creep, when after the fact, when you've locked in the features into the product, the customer then goes, oh, can you add this, you know, this feature, because they didn't think about it at the time, and they only thought about it because sometimes those ideas can only be thought out once they see the final product, and they want to go back to, you know, modify the final product with the additional feature that they forgot, right? Uh, so anyways, that's why they're going towards agile, because agile, you have, little sprints of waterfall. um, so it becomes iterative, but you've got like little waterfall projects within the holistic project, and every time you make an addition, right, then you can add extra features and all that, and it becomes flexible and dynamic, and you can add uh, you could add and take away features as each sprint progresses, right? So uh, essentially, that model accounts for multiple ideas and changing of the ideas, and having like a change management and all that kind of stuff, right? So the thing is, anyways, what am I getting to? My point. My point is that um, you have to get to the point where, so you're going to have multiple ideas, right? And they're going to be evolving, changing, and changing, and changing, and changing. Um, and if you're like stuck in one idea as well, then you're just basically implementing the waterfall style, where you've got this great idea, and then you're not modifying it, and then later on the track, there's a need to change the idea, because your environment has changed, technology has changed, and so on and so forth. So the initial idea that you had, you might have to have a system like Agile to make sure that you have uh, a system in place to allow you to add extra features or extra ideas to your main idea, right? But at the same time, there's this thing called, you know, um, I think it's called this. It's called feature locking, or uh, requirements requirements freezing, or feature freezing, or something along these lines. So what that is basically, um, there comes a point where, even in agile, there comes a point where the whole organization decides, oh, we're not going to make any more changes. Any new changes come after like the next phase or the next milestone, right? So the next sprint, then we add more changes. But within this period of time when we're actually implementing and developing, there's no change, right? Because that can add a lot of complications, right? Because I still have to plan out, and they still have to do the change management, right? So they still have to plan out how do they implement that change within the system, right? And when you're developing the system, you also have to account for, how do I design the system so that change is possible, instead of hard coding or hard developing every single thing, and it makes it stiff and rigid, but it's not as flexible, right? So coming back to the ideas side of things, you have to make sure that you have systems in place where you can sort of modify that idea down the track to um, uh, adapt to the changing environment. But at the same time, you have to be able to self-discipline yourself to be able to lock in um, decisions that you've made, because or else if you go with the wind, and you go from side to side, and you keep changing your ideas, and keep changing choices, and changing, there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of you know collateral damage that can do, right? So um, and there's also that graph that increases in cost in terms of when certain things change. So when you're changing things on paper, changing text is fairly simple, and it doesn't cost that much. But when you get up to the part where everything's implemented, and then you change your idea and change things later down the track, that's costly, because you've already, say for example, if civil engineers, right, um, uh, the owners decide, oh, can you put an extra floor, or can you put an extra room, or can you put um, this extra structure, right? Say for example, and then like halfway, that they're already building the building, and they have to do some hacky stuff just to you know, apply these changes. But usually they probably wouldn't do that anyway. Usually what they'll do is they'll make the changes when they're drawing up the blueprints and the architectural drawings, and they'll make sure that those drawings have those changes in the first place, so that it's not expensive to make those changes later down the track when they've actually halfway done the building, right? So yeah, and that goes back to how important that vetting your idea. Reason why you have to vet your idea is so that by the time you get to the point of implementation and implementing that idea, you don't spend all this money just figuring out that you could have made those changes on text before you could have before you made the changes on actual the implementation, or say the code, or the um, physical structure or the construction, or so on, so right. Anyways, hope you liked the video. I've got my thoughts going out, like I've got a lot of ideas and thoughts as well, so that's why this question sort of uh, yeah, it this question vibes with me very well, because I do have a lot of ideas, and my even my colleagues and my friends and my co-founders, they tell me, oh, you're thinking too ahead, or you're um, just stick to one idea, stop thinking of like multiple ideas, right? In my opinion, it's good to have those ideas. Question is that what do you do with those ideas, and you know which idea do you pick to go with, and can you keep consistent and persistent and discipline yourself to stick with one idea without being distracted with many other ideas that you have. Yeah. Anyways, hope you like this video. If you do, put a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. So those new to this channel, I'll just explain what the channel is about. Initially when I started the channel, it was just a lot of random videos, because it was just basically about my story, my background. But I'm moving this towards my learning journey, towards how I'm progressing as a as an individual, as a business owner, and also at the same time, I want to freely teach what I know, because it reinforces what I know as well. And if it could help you guys out there, that I'm happy to help, then that's it makes me feel good just to help you guys, right? So that's another reason why I made this channel, and I sort of wanted to sort of build a legacy behind, sort of like, because for example, when you see when you see a lot of entrepreneurs, they you only see them when they're successful, and they do talk about their past, but there's no documentation of it, because YouTube has only been around since 2005-ish, around there. Yeah, so it would have been hard to find people documenting their path back then, entrepreneurs back then. So for the next generation, I want to document uh, my successes and failures, right? So that when I reach the end post, or the next milestone, then people behind me can see, oh, so he took these steps, um, but that might not necessarily make other people successful, but it will help them along the way to make better decisions and better judgments, and they can say, oh, um, I can learn from his mistakes, or I can learn from his successes, right? And you know doing it for the income and money just gets old. Like, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're financially stable, and money doesn't satisfy you anyway, right? So I'm doing it for more than that. Anyways, hope you like it. I'm gonna end this video now. Like, I'm blabbering on, and my a lot of my friends and colleagues tell me that I do tend to blabber on as well. I can be quiet, but I do blabber on. But anyways, I'll catch you guys later. See you in the next video.